say, every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want you.
For corruption.
From her independence on October 1st, 1960 to date, corruption has been a major challenge to Nigeria's quest for development. Hence, successive governments have always professed disdain for corruption and adopted different measures to curb the malaise. Such measures include the enactment of laws, setting up of commissions of inquiry, and anti-corruption institutions, as well as embarking on campaigns. From 1962, several commissions of inquiry were set up to probe allegations of abuse of public office, the ethical revolution by Alhaji Shehu Shagari, war against indiscipline by the Buhari Idiagbon administration, and war against indiscipline and corruption by General Sani Abacha were some other efforts made in the past to check corruption. The Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act was signed into law in June 2000 by the Olusegun Obasanjo administration. This was a revolutionary step that signaled the beginning of a dynamic and systemic fight against corruption. It was later followed up by the Economic and Financial Crimes Establishment Act 2003, the Public Procurement Act 2007, Freedom of Information Act 2011, and recently, the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act 2020, among others. So, how has Nigeria fared in its bid to rid itself of corruption in the past 62 years? Welcome to Corruption Must Go, 2022 Independence Day Special Edition. I am Murna Barnabas Atiai. Our focus today is on Nigeria's 62 years of independence and the nation's efforts at tackling the menace. Also today, we have anti-corruption stories and more. First, let's join Joy Aja with anti-corruption stories. Over to you, Joy.
Hello viewers, thank you for joining us. I am Joy Aja with Anti-Corruption Stories. The chairman of ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasonye SAN, has charged practicing accountants in the society to adequately play their statutory role in order to help curtail corruption and contribute to economic development. Owasonye gave this charge during a courtesy visit by the president and management team of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN, to the Commission's headquarters recently. The chairman stated that for the country to develop, accountants will have to be a very strong part of the process. He emphasized that if professional bodies were going to contribute to national development, it was necessary for them to carry out their assignments dispassionately with no iota of compromise.
Accountants are very important to economic development because they know figures. To steal money, you need accountants. But for accountants to steal, they don't need you. So this is very important. It's very important to underscore the relevance of importance. We're quite happy that accountants, especially ICAN, found it worthy to reflect on some of the work that we're doing, especially around illicit financial flows. I've always thought that if the country is ever going to develop, accountants will have to be a very strong part of that process. I'm quite happy to hear of your index, the accountability tool, measuring tool. Measuring tools are never often well received. They always make people uncomfortable or happy, depending on which side of the divide that they fall. They elicit all the time mixed reactions. And that is no reason to stop. If professional bodies are going to contribute to national development, they must of necessity do things like that, dispassionately. I've challenged some other professional bodies like quantity surveyors, engineers, and all that. When professional bodies think more of the role they play as part of the food chain, when I say the food chain, because they get big government contracts and projects as consultancies, it compromises their judgment and they don't play the role. But when you firmly rate the stakes, that will contribute to development.
Earlier, the ICANN president, Malam Tijani Musa Issa, FCA, in his address noted that corruption has become globalized and technology has accentuated a strong network of corrupt individuals who wield strong international, political, social, and economic influences. He also commended the Commission for the giant strides in apprehending high-profile offenders in cases of corruption in the country, particularly with the Commission's policy of exposing people engaged in corrupt practices and the publication of names of those at large on the Commission's website.
We wish to commend the Commission for the giant strides in apprehending high-profile offenders in cases of corruption in the country. We are particularly pleased with the Commission's policy of exposing people engaged in corrupt practices and publication of names of those at large on the Commission's website. This is similar to our policy at ICANN. We do not hesitate to register and provide the public with information on any member found culpable of any form of professional misdemeanor and corruption. We jealously guide the extraordinary 7-year record of the Institute and the Ombudsman of Transparency and Accountability in Nigeria. It is true, it is trite to say that corruption has become globalized and technology has accentuated a strong network of corrupt individuals who wield strong international, political, social, and economic influence. Hence, beyond the challenge to localize corruption networks, ICPC has a more daunting task of tackling institutionalized corruption, internationalized corruption networks, especially those that directly affect our nation. It is our strong belief that corruption of any form and shape is a heinous crime, not just to this present generation, but also to future ones.
ICPC Chairman Professor Bolaji Owasonye, SAN, has inaugurated a 14-man asset disposal committee to manage assets forfeited to the federal government. Speaking at the ceremony which held at the ICPC headquarters in Abuja, Professor Owasonye said that to ensure transparency and accountability in forfeited assets, the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA, mandated the creation of an asset disposal committee in every agency to manage recovered assets. He said the inauguration of the committee was aimed at ensuring proper coordination of the disposal of recovered assets and to promote a harmonized and transparent procedure that would safeguard the assets recovered by the Commission.
For the purpose of putting sanity and clarity into the entire process, one of the things that POCA mandated is the creation in every agency of a department to manage recovered assets. So, by law now, ICPC, EFCC, NDLA, NAPTIP, Custom, all those agencies that recover assets must have a department. Of course, before POCA was passed, we had a department. It was ATRM, but we've changed the name to align because the law virtually gave it a name. So it's now called Process of Crime Recovery and Management Department. Those two people at the end of the table are from that department. So we changed the name of our former ATRM to PUCD. The second thing, so basically it empowers the agency to then manage assets and gives some powers. For example, if you recover a perishable asset, you are empowered to dispose of it quickly. Under the ICPC Act, we also had that same power. We also had a power if we didn't want to manage an asset to bond it. So if we recover a car from you, rather than take the car and keep it here and be warming it, paying for battery or worrying about its quality, you give us a bond about its value and we leave the car with you. So if you misbehave or we say, where is the car? We just go and take the bond and cash. We won't even do any trading with you. So we have that power to bond and we use it a number of times to manage assets. The problem with asset management is that it is difficult for an agency to anticipate what will happen in a fiscal year. So for example, ICPC cannot tell how many assets we will recover in 2023, the quality of those assets, their condition, the sensitivity. So it's impossible to budget and anticipate that, okay, give us 1 billion to manage assets. Secondly, is a slippery slope because you have to use judgment, and whatever you do can be criticized as not being in the best interest or in the public interest. So we have tried our best when we recover asset. If it's a property, we just let it out as it is. As it is. So we will not spend money that we have at hand to fix an asset that we recovered. We'll let it out and say, you take it, if you go and fix it. So if the market value is ordinarily 1 million for rent, but because it is dilapidated, you are up 500,000, we'll take it from you. But at least money is not leaving the public purse to go and manage, and then we're not even sure we're going to get that rent value from you. We'll try to innovate in order to save some money.
That will be all on this segment. Corruption Must Go continues with Myrna. Stay with us.
This is Corruption Must Go, and the focus is Nigeria's 62 years of independence and the fight against corruption. Nigeria has passed several laws to fight the malice. How has the laws helped in reducing corruption in the country? Corruption Must Go spoke to a cross-section of Nigerians to get their views. Let's listen to them.
The fight against corruption has been a bit slow from my own perception. I feel we've been dragging towards it, we've been getting promises and to even enact some of these policies that helps to fight corruption. It takes them years to enact some. And I feel also youth inclusiveness is also something we can work towards. Okay, yes, you are passing the bill, but this bill you're passing for, it's for the youth, right? The fight against corruption. Do these youth even know about the bill? Do they know about their right? So I feel the best way towards conquering something is know what you're fighting against. So not just we knowing what the corruption, okay, you're bringing out a solution, right? What's your solution? What's your solution doing? So generally, I just feel youth inclusiveness should also be part of something we do. Fight against corruption in this country.
In my own little space, I try as much as possible not to be partaking in any issue that had to be fraudulent, being part of a group that will say let's influence this figure just to benefit my own selfish interest. And as we celebrate independence, I know since I was a kid and I know the celebration of independence, Nigeria have been fighting corruption, and up till now we are still fighting corruption. But as we celebrate this year independence, I want to put it out there to all citizens that in their own little doings, they should ensure to do the right thing, maintain or promote that value of integrity within their own little need, because it's a little drop of water that makes an ocean. So if we begin to do that in our own little corner, collectively we'll be able to promote integrity, and the issues of corruption will be a history in this country.
So one of the things fueling corruption in Nigeria is the fact that people try to line their pockets, and I think it's as a result of the effects. So I mean, I have issues currently because of the corruption that's already going on. Therefore, when I get into power, I want to also steal money because, you know, when I was suffering, nobody was there to help me. And so it's just that same reason, and that's why corruption keeps going on. And the solution to this problem is for us to start thinking about the community and no longer ourselves. Okay, this, say for instance now the trash I'm about to throw out of the door now, it's not going to only affect me, it's also going to affect other people in the society. It's going to make the place dirty. Okay, that market seller who is has increased their scale or reduced the scale so that they have a little bit more profit. Obviously, it's not going to affect you directly today, but then it's just that behavior, it's that discipline. You're not instilling that discipline in you, because if you got into power, you still do the same thing. In this little way you've done it now, they say how you manage 100 naira today is how you're going to manage 1 million. So that little money you have, and it's the same thing, it's just that practice that we need to instill in ourselves, that discipline.
So for me, it's expedient that we start looking at what is happening in terms of our procurement system, issues of open contracting. Have we started taking it as seriously as it should be? It's imperative that we look at all of the loopholes that has created that financial leakages, both from the expenditure and the revenue spectrum. Because if you keep them open, that one can enter into public office and be able to embezzle funds, and after many years you start looking for a person who has used so much funds, you know, to suppress the process. So we need to start building strong institutions. We need to ensure that processes are stronger than they used to be, and the system is clear, such that people are not able to, you know, go into public offices and do whatever they like. And there must be consequences for actions.
I need everyone, every citizen of Nigeria to understand that Nigeria is our responsibility. No one would do the work for us, so we have to rise up to the task and get the job done. Happy 62nd Independence Day to all the wonderful Nigerians out there, the hardworking Nigerians. We hope for a better Nigeria, and we will see the change in Nigeria in years to come.
Nigeria is completing 62 years, so I'm wishing Nigeria a happy anniversary, as happy independence.
Be positive. My message to Nigerians is to be positive. Everybody should vote for the next coming election. Our vote is our power. We need to vote to bring the change that we are looking for. The change we are looking for is not going to be uprooted from the ground. So to all Nigerians celebrating tomorrow, happy Independence Day.
I want to wish Nigeria happy independence tomorrow. We pray for a better Nigeria. Yeah.
Welcome back. The Corruption Must Go crew also spoke to some media and civil society partners on their perception of the fight against corruption in Nigeria's 62 years.
For me, I think it's a good direction in which we're going with different laws to fight corruption in the Nigerian context. Actually, to build integrity and accountability in our system, which is I think is a gap. These laws, for me, I think it has created a legal backing and a legal framework in which MDAs can act. So previously, if there's an issue, take for instance money laundering, illicit financial flows, we know these challenges, but there was no legal backing in terms of ways for ICPC to act, in terms of prevention, in terms of enforcement. Also look at other organizations like the Ministry of Justice and the courts. But one thing I think these laws have done is just to create a platform where we can act, basically civil society organizations as well, not just ICPC, to engage with these responsible persons who are committing this fraud, to say, this has just given us a foundation or a legal backing or framework in which we can act to make sure we enforce laws which will prevent this consent. I think one of the good success is the Money Laundering Act, and I think the proceeds of crimes Act as well, which was recently passed, and how ICPC has really led the fight against corruption when it comes to illicit financial flows. We've seen a lot of that. Money from here. Well, we live in a virtual world now, so you see a lot of digital things happening in terms of e-commerce, and people hide under that umbrella. But yes, I want to also commend ICPC for leading that direction. We've seen progress in that direction from these legal frameworks around this, and for ICPC as well, and not in partnership with Accountability Lab. One of the things we've seen in building integrity in our society, in doing the right things, and also encouraging people, because previously we've seen situations where corruption is like the norm, right? You have the Nigerian daily newspapers, TV station always crying out on these issues. But now you see with these little progresses, I always say Nigeria is 200 million people and above. But previously we don't hear these people talk about doing the right thing. But now those little progress, for me, it counts a lot with what we are doing in the space to ensure there's progress and people do the right thing and build an accountable society.
I think what we've been able to do as a country so far is identify gaps. When we set up laws in the beginning, we cannot see everything, we cannot see every aspect. So when you set up the law and you identify a gap, then you set up another law to bridge that gap. So we've been able over time to sort of develop that iterative process to build on existing laws. So I think that has been helpful. I also think what has been helpful is actually setting up these anti-corruption agencies, the ICPC, the EFCC, to do the work to actually enforce the sanctions, to charge people who have contravened the law, who are corrupt, to court, and implement the laws as they are. I also think that in the way that we enable civil society organizations to work, we have this, it's not all countries that have this enabling environment. There are some countries that are quite, although that shouldn't be our aspiration, so to say, but there are some countries that are quite dictatorial in terms of civil society that are muffled and cannot even do the work of holding a light, shining a light on the work of public sector and private sector as well. So I think creating that enabling environment for civil society helps, but I think a lot more can be done. There are several areas where we're falling short. I think there is less freedom for media now than we would like. I think for us to have a purely transparent society, to advance the fight against corruption, we need a media whose voice is very strong.
There is no doubt that all these programs and mechanisms put in place by the government have remarkably contributed to the improved rating of Nigeria on the Corruption Perception Index from the second most corrupt country 20 years ago. There is still a lot of room for improvement, and ICPC will not rest on its laurels in this struggle. While the famed integrity and sincerity of purpose of the president is crucial and indicative of strong political will, it is not sufficient to drive, win, or sustain the war against corruption in Nigeria. Sustaining and winning the war requires the commitment of all Nigerians to practice integrity and take action against corruption. Join ICPC in the fight against corruption to make Nigeria great again. Visit our website www.icpc.gov.ng to make your reports, inquiries, and suggestions. You can reach us on all our social media handles at ICPC Nigeria. You can also reach us via our toll-free numbers as shown on the screen. Happy 62nd Independence Anniversary, and see you again sometime next week. Bye for now.